Would you say that you are always on your best behavior, or are there times where you're possibly a little embarrassed about how you've behaved, depending on what's going on, right? We all have moments where things come up and we can get a little overly emotional. And so today we're going to be talking about uh, this fancy word called triggers, and how we handle situations that trigger us. So it's going to be a fun conversation. This is Nicolette Moore. This is coaching show. That's a mouthful, right? This is coaching show. And I'm here joined today with two amazing coaches, Marquise Navarro and Monica Riva. And we are just coaches on a mission to help the world become more familiar with the coaching industry and the benefit that coaching has for all of us, truly. So on the topic of triggers, really triggers come from reaction, being reactive about something. And I want to start by talking to Monica. I've known Monica now for over a year. And Monica, the entire time I've known you, you have been one of the most calm, happy-go-lucky. Like, you show up, you're smiling, you just seem like nothing gets to you. And so really, I'm putting you on the spot because I want to know what triggers you. I want to know what gets under Monica's skin.
Okay. I'm not prepared for this.
I know.
While you were talking, I was sort of wondering, I wonder what I should say about this. Because it's true, yeah, it's not that much that triggers me, but what triggers me the most is when people talk badly about themselves, how people talk themselves down and say, oh, I'm so stupid, oh, I'm such a fool. So that kind of stuff, that triggers me. That sort of, no, you cannot say that about yourself. You shouldn't say. Even you should be nicer to yourself and don't pull yourself down. That triggers me. People that are sort of begging me, please, 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 that I just cannot stand. So, yeah, that is something that no, be stronger, be yourself. Don't wipe the floor in front of my feet, basically. But otherwise, there is not much that triggers me at the moment that I can think of. I'll come back to you if something comes up, and I'll tell you about it.
That's funny. The please, please, please thing makes me think of an example I was going to use as my kids, and I'm sure Marquise can definitely relate to this. The mom, 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 mom. That triggers me. Yeah. What about you, Marquise? What are some things that trigger you or get under your skin?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. Yeah, I guess I have quite a few. You know, the couple of things that really irk me, of course, involve driving. People who don't know how to drive the speed limit and can't realize the on-ramp is for getting up to speed, not slowly merging. You know, road rage is a real thing. Not really road rage, but yeah, I can't stand people who can't drive. You are correct. I do understand the constant nagging and bothering by the kids. But my kids have learned they get twice at the most. And then they start losing privileges. Because I've already answered it. I'm not going to answer it again, especially if it's within the 5 minutes or so. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, things that are just, to me, illogical. I have a hard time dealing with things that I don't find logical. If it doesn't make sense, I don't think it should be done. And it's hard for me to grasp how anybody could not see how illogical something is, right? And I know that's my own thing. Like, common sense is not so common. So what's logical for me may not be logical for them. And I get that. But that is definitely a big one. Yeah, I've always been, and maybe it's the military in me, because they do a lot of illogical shit. So I spent a lot of years just being annoyed by some of the things that I had to do, because I'm like, this doesn't make sense. We're doing it the hardest way possible. Mm-hmm. So Yeah, that's my short list. I have more. They're just
Mm.
not worth going into.
I know for me, it's a lot. A lot comes to my kids. My kids trigger me a lot just because of the fighting triggers me, and the like some of the things that it kind of goes back to what you're saying, Marquise, about common sense. Some of the things that they ask me about, I'm like, how do you not understand how to do that? You know?
Yes.
But then it's like having to try to put myself in their shoes and try to be empathetic. Um, but I had a really interesting situation. We're just coming back from the Thanksgiving holiday, and I did some traveling with my family. We went to see my parents and my sister, and then we did some work. My husband had some road work, right? So we had to go to New Orleans and Houston and Corpus before coming back home. And on one of the trips, we were leaving a hotel. I think we were leaving from Houston going to Corpus, and we had there was a situation where our toilet was leaking, and my husband meant to tell the staff, hey, the toilet's leaking, but what we were driving off. And he said, oh man, I need to go back. Right. So we're at this stoplight. And if anybody's familiar with South Texas, South Louisiana kind of environment, they have really deep ditches on sides of the road. Um, and it rains a lot there. And so it had been raining while we were out. And my husband at this stop sign decides, hey, I need to go back and tell the staff about this toilet. And so he reverses the car, but then he saw another car coming up to the stop sign. So he pulls over to the side of the road. Now, we are not familiar or used to dealing with ditches in San Antonio. There's not really a lot of ditch situations here. And my poor husband, he just went a little too far over in the ditch, and you could just feel the car start to slide into the ditch. And I was triggered. I was triggered hardcore, and it was a scary, like, I was terrified. I was scared, and I'm holding on to the arm, the little arm piece, by the window, and hanging on to this other thing. And I was just like, now I'm pregnant right now, and I had a baby right behind me, and we were on the side of the ditch that if the car had fallen into it, we would have been the recipients of the crash. And so I was thinking about my baby in my belly, in my womb, and I was thinking about the baby right behind me that's in a 5-point harness getting crushed. And so I'm sitting here like terrified, and I'm trying so hard to be calm, right? I'm the coach in the house. I'm the coach in the family. I'm the one that's supposed to have like her emotions under control. And I was really struggling. And that was a big trigger for me. We eventually had this amazing savior who came and pulled us out of the ditch, thank God. To which I cried for like 30 minutes hysterically. But it was like that's a trigger. And I think that that's something that we don't experience. We're not like in life-threatening situations very much, but really what was really profound for me thinking, looking back on this situation, is triggers come up because we have this sense of threat, of survival. And so Marquise gets the trigger while he's driving, and it's probably less to do with the fact that somebody's driving retardedly, more to do with the fact that it's a safety issue. It's like, oh my gosh, this person is putting my life, my family's life, the lives of other people at risk because they're not driving appropriately. Right. But it's like we don't think of it consciously like that, but that's the trigger. It's a safety issue. And so these are fascinating, things that we experience. And have y'all thought a whole lot about the safety reaction that we experience?
Yes. So, given my background, like I'm constantly thinking of things that are safe and unsafe. Um, like for instance, you are correct. Like when it's driving, I do hate that if a person is in a lane that is meant to be a little bit faster and they get over doing the same speed they were doing before, so everybody has to pass them on the wrong side. That is an issue to me. Like nobody, you shouldn't have to pass on that side. And while those that do it don't think uh, my anger is appropriate, I disagree, and a lot of people do. But when it comes to safety, I do. I am very safety conscious. I hate crowds, especially when I'm with my family. Like when I'm by myself, I'm okay. Crowds don't bother me. I've only got one person to worry about. Now, when it's with my family, I've got three people to worry about. Although my wife can handle herself, she's an adult, right? She's been on Earth just as long as I have, maybe a little bit longer. Um, you know, but with me, it's I have to make sure that everybody's okay. And of course, knowing and having experience with various criminal things, um, it does make those triggers worse. Sitting in a restaurant with my back to the door, can't do it. Unless the person I'm with, I know for a fact, knows what to do.
Hmm.
And that's not my wife. Like my wife knows I have to sit facing the door so I can see the threat. It's just something I've always had to do. Now, there's other situations where it's a little overwhelming. And I think there are certain factors that make it worse. Honestly, one, how much sleep I had the night before. Did I eat? There's physiological things and mental things that come into play. But yes, I'm constantly thinking about security. Some might think I have PTSD. I don't know. It's never been diagnosed, but it's a thing. And I personally think we all should have that sense within us, right? And train ourselves to react differently. Like I calm myself down. I know that when my wife says, "Hey, we're going to go to the fair," we're going to have an argument for about 5 minutes because she knows I don't like to go because of crowds. And then she always says the final word, "You always have a good time when we go." And I take my deep breath. I walk away, like a frustrated kid. And then I sit on the couch, wait for everybody to get ready, and then we go. And I have a great time, right? So, I've learned to deal with it and get over it, so to speak. But I'm still on guard. That and one time we went to the fair, we got on a ride, and me and my daughter on the ride, and it broke on the ride.
Oh my gosh.
So we're stuck up there, and my wife is on the ground, just
Yeah.
mama bear.
Yeah.
Me, I'm thinking, how do I get off of this ride and carry my daughter down the side of it? I'm like going through everything. It was comical. Not at the time, but afterwards it was hilarious.
So thinking about triggers as it's a response from our what they call reptilian brain, right? Our amygdala, the tiniest, the most survival driven part of our brain. Now, Monica mentioned a trigger being when somebody, what was the first one that you had said, Monica?
When somebody talks themselves down and say, stupid me.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. That's part triggers me. I don't get triggered a lot by, I was just thinking, I live in a smaller country, that might be it. I don't have the issue of having to control. I don't feel that I have the issue that I need to control the door from where any kind of danger could come. People here drive safely. It's of course I drive a scooter to work, so I know that. Well, sometimes I also see some people that are not really, really confident on the road, and then it's better to leave them behind and instead of having them in front of you. But except for that, here it's a very Switzerland is a very calm place to live. So those kind of triggers are not much in my world. But as I said, people that talk themselves down and don't sort of have a way of seeing themselves that is less than what's possible for them. Those kind of people, their way of acting triggers me.
I almost wonder if the like amygdala response to that, the survival response to that, is because a person in that position isn't someone that's reliable in times of survival.
That could be, yeah.
I don't know.
I know.
That could be.
I will say that, people that talk down about themselves, one thing that I've always tried to live by is the phrase "I can't," especially when I had kids. I don't like my kids to use the phrase "I can't," and I don't even need them to say "I will do it." I just need to say I'm going to try. Like, for instance, I coached both their soccer teams, and the first rule I lay out for every team is you're not allowed to say "I can't." So when I ask you to throw the ball across the field, even though I know they're not big enough to do it, I just need you to have in your mind that you might be able to do it. So you're going to try and try your hardest. And, it works. It takes a few games for them to stop saying it. But after they stop saying it, it's amazing what happens, right? But I hate anybody saying I can't, young or small. And I think the reason is because I'm of the thought process that if I can do something, anybody should be able to do it, because I'm not like some, I don't know, amazing thing. I'm just an average guy, and I'm not asking them to do anything that I wouldn't or couldn't do, right? So when people say I can't, that tells me that you've already given up in your brain, and that I don't like that. Like, that is another trigger. It's not and they don't realize it's a negative self-talk, like we talked about last time. It's automatically, they're used to going to that way. And I've done it myself. I still catch myself. I'm human. But when I think about it, I'm like, well, I didn't even try, so I need to quit being a punk and at least try. Then I can say, well, I tried, I couldn't do it. You know what I mean? So.
Well, so triggers are things that we get reactionary. We react to things. There have been little hints here and there that you guys have mentioned and brought up of ways to kind of deal with it and cope. And so the cool thing that I hope all of us can come to terms with is that we're all human, just like Marquise just mentioned. We're human, and even the best leaders in the world still get triggered, right? You see it through the presidential elections or the debates. we saw everybody getting triggered. The top of the top people, the ones that are the best leaders in the world, the most renowned humans, they all get triggered too. So we're in good company, right? We're in good company. It's just what it is. But there are things that we can do to manage our triggers. And Monica and Marquise have both kind of hinted to this already. One of the best things that I've heard and that I've used myself, and I don't use enough, it's something that I'm still actively working on to incorporate into my trigger management. But when you feel yourself going into the trigger, when you feel things are like, okay, the kid is going mom, 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 or the car is, going in front of you acting like a fool. The best thing to do to kind of help lessen and diminish that amygdala response is to simply force yourself to pause. Force yourself to just not react the way that you want to. And it's so hard. It sounds so simple, but it's so hard whenever you're triggered. It's just that instant. You pull the trigger, a bullet shoots, right? I mean, it's easy to fall into it. So that's like, to me, step one is just forcing yourself to pause. What else would you suggest from the moment that somebody realizes they're being triggered about something? What, they're in the pause state, they're like forcing themselves to calm down. They're forcing themselves to not let that amygdala just take over. What else can somebody do to help kind of diminish the trigger?
I know for me, typically you do have to force yourself to pause, and I think I never labeled it until you just did. But yeah, I stop and I think: is this a logical response to what's going on? Do I? Does this warrant the level of emotion that I'm giving it at this point in time? And it's a split second thought and a split second, thought process, followed by a deep breath. And sometimes it takes more than one. I think there's a rule of thumb that says it's 6 that resets your entire state of mind, because it drops your heart rate a little bit, lowers your blood pressure, and it like fills your brain with oxygen, which clears out everything. And I'm paraphrasing and I could be butchering it, but that's basically what happens. So yeah, take a deep breath, or 6, and then I go about my business. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, 6. I mean, 6 can't hurt, right? It's only helpful because it's creating more of a window between what you're going to do next and what your initial reaction wants to be.
Right.
Monica, do you have any suggestions?
Well, breathe is important. Take a deep breath, of course. And sometimes when I get triggered by things people do, not things, accidents or danger situations, but more if somebody stands there and says, please, 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 like this for me. And I'm just thinking to myself sometimes, where in my life have I done it myself that makes me feel this trigger now towards this other person? And sometimes just realizing that, as a child, perhaps I did it, or in certain situations, I might do it. I realize what made me trigger, what triggered the whole thing in me, and I can release it more easily.
Yeah. One thing, and I think I've probably mentioned this before, and I wouldn't be surprised because I go to this so often myself, but after pausing, and I like the idea of the 6 breaths because it kind of almost gives you a mathematical formula. Okay, let me do it 6 times. Let me breathe before I do anything else. But really putting yourself mentally in a place where you realize this situation that's triggering me is a growth opportunity. And so you can look at it as, hey, this is a gift that I'm experiencing right now. And how can I learn from it? How can I grow into a better human because of it? Quick tangent side note tip for those of you who struggle with traffic, Marquise. This is something that I do. I just got to put this out there because I would be upset if I didn't share this. When somebody's driving acting like a fool in traffic, and mostly the ones that are driving fast, the ones that are just driving way too fast and all over the place, I always say to myself, and my husband gets really triggered in traffic when people drive that way. My kids get freaked out. And I always tell them, look, that person just really has to go take a serious crap. That person has got to find a toilet. Okay. That is what's going on. And I say that because I had back when I was 17, 18 years old, I was a hostess at a restaurant. And one of my fellow hostesses came into the restaurant one day and she was like, I got pulled over last night and I had to go to the restroom so bad. And the cop came up to me and was like, why are you speeding? And I was like, officer, I've got to go to the restroom. I'm going to crap myself. He didn't care. He wrote her a ticket anyway. She had to deal with it. She had to suck it up, literally. But ever since then, when I see somebody driving crazy in traffic, that's where I put my brain, because it helps bring comedy into the experience and helps to lower my reaction. And two, it's just, you never know what's going on in somebody else's car, and so to me that's like a good way for me to enjoy the crazy experience that is in front of me.
That is funny. I have to key in on something, because one thing I've noticed that the three of us, we didn't talk about this beforehand, and we rarely do. We just kind of go for it. And everything that you guys have mentioned, I believe we all do without talking about it, without even thinking about it. And it's just kind of a common thing. And I'm beginning to think that individuals that are more self-aware of their faults, if you will, and acknowledge them, they all have the same mind frame, which I find amazing. Because we all have the same ways of getting over it, because we realized, all right, this is not how a civil human being should act, or this is
Mhm.
not the reaction we should have. So we find ways, and all the same ways, apparently, because I do the same thing. I'm like, well, I don't know if that person's in a hurry. Maybe he does have to take a crap, or there's an emergency. Because
Yeah,
I've been in that situation myself,
yeah.
and I do ask, have I ever driven like an asshole in the past?
Hmm.
Therefore, I shouldn't be mad at what this person's doing. So I think it's just very, very, interesting to see that we all have the same MO when it comes to not raging out, if you will.
No, that's good. And self-awareness, I love that you brought that up, because that is so key to so many different elements of being able to have um, emotional intelligence, to being able to um, grow and mature and develop yourself and your character. You have to have self-awareness in order to even know what things you need to work on. So when you're self-aware about triggers, for example, okay, traffic triggers me. What mind games can I play with myself so that I can stay safe? Because when you're triggered, and you start becoming reactive, you can put yourself and your family in a more dangerous place, because your brain can kind of trip up. And so self-awareness is huge. So thanks for bringing that up. That was awesome insight. So let's do a quick recap. Triggers happen because it's really a survival response. We're just trying to protect ourselves in one way or another. And they can come from everything from somebody saying, please, 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 to your car almost being crushed in a ditch, right? There's all sorts of reasons why we can get triggered. And there are some really easy ways that we can manage those triggers, as long as we become self-aware of them. So taking a pause, having 6 breaths in between the pause and whatever you do next, and just recognizing, hey, this is a growth opportunity. How can I use this for my benefit? How can I use this to grow myself? Those are all excellent ways to start becoming a more capable and emotionally intelligent adult or teen or kid, and just able to handle what life throws at you a little bit more effectively. Do either of y'all have any closing comments?
Fine. It's that sounds just, I mean, a nice recap of everything that we just went through.
Yeah. I don't really have anything to add, other than one I thought of is, now that I've got kids, the reactions definitely have to be different, and then they do make me think more before I respond. And sometimes it doesn't work. My kids have seen me at my worst and my best, and I try to make sure they see me at my best and more than the worst. But that is definitely something I take into account. What would I want to have my kids see? You know what I mean? So
Yeah, modeling. That's a good motivator too, is modeling how to handle situations appropriately. And I think about that too with my kids, because oh my gosh, being
Yeah,
a
you're
parent
right.
can be really challenging.
very
Yeah.
challenging.
Yeah, it's true. But I'm a completely different person now than I was before children as well. So yeah, you grow with your children, and you become a more, I don't know, calm person that respond. No, not always.
You try to be.
Try to be.
Well, I'm just thinking in general, are all parents, by the time the kids leave home, more calm and more well-rounded? Probably not. Not especially if they're not self-aware and if they're not actively working on their triggers or their personal growth. Unfortunately, I know too many people that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s that just seem like they haven't grown past 15 years of age. Like mature, the maturity is just not there because they haven't even thought that they needed to grow.
No, that's so sad though, because I mean, you could have such a better life with yourself. I would think if you had more maturity.
100%. I completely agree with that. Yeah. So it's worth it. It's worth it to take the time to work on your triggers and to develop that self-awareness. And so one of the things that is available to all of us in order to facilitate that growth and that awareness is coaching, right? We're coming together. We're talking about tools that we use for ourselves, but this is also something that we would 100% share with any clients that we have. And coaching, as you know, is just such a gift, right? And so I love coaching in the sense that we've all had people that we work with over an extended period of time, and we can see their patterns. We can see when somebody is self-sabotaging, right? Talking down about themselves constantly. It's like, hey, you're not going to find the success and the joy in your life if you're going to continue to do this. So the accountability, the insight that you get from working with a coach is just phenomenal. So I encourage any of you that are listening to reach out, find a coach that works for you, that you can grow with, so that you can become a more well-rounded person, that you're not going into your 70s and 80s, still the emotionally mental age of a 15-year-old, right? We don't want that. We don't want that. And for any of you out there listening and want to, communicate with us, you can always find us at thisiscoachingshow@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, answer any questions that you have. We'd even be happy to have you on to coach you if you'd like to. So just reach out to us and let us know. Any closing comments? Are we good? Are we complete?
I think we've summed it up pretty good.
Awesome. Okay. Well, until next time, this is Nicolette Moore with Marquise Navarro and Monica Riva, and we'll see you next time.